Hello everyone. This is Tobi from the Phuket Meditation Center, and you're listening to the Dharana Meditation Podcast. Let's sit together, calm the busy mind, and explore topics concerning character development, meditative training, and deeper self-knowledge. So let's begin by sitting upright. The head is gently suspended from above. Body is relaxed, at ease. Let's take a few slow, deep, comfortable breaths. Let the breath slowly sink into the belly. Remembering why you are really here. We're all pretty much seeking the same thing. An end of stress, worries, fears, difficulties, hardships. In short, an end of suffering. And at the same time, we're looking for happiness, joy, lightheartedness, ease, which is pretty much the same. Generating a clear intention. May I be truly happy, may I be at ease, may I be free from all stress, from worries, from pain. Receiving yourself with kindness, with compassion. And slowly, breath by breath, you notice how everything naturally slows down, how the body and the mind begin to settle. Let's take that a little bit deeper. Breathing in, feeling the entire body. Let your consciousness fill and saturate every cell of your body. And breathing out, softening, releasing all the tension that you may find there. Let it all gradually melt, evaporate. finding some space, some comfort. Breathing in, feeling the body, breathing out, softening. And you may gradually notice how much of the tension we're holding habitually is quite unnecessary to hold that. For example, tension in the forehead, the jaws, the shoulders, tension around the heart or the belly. As your body gradually fills up with consciousness, you become more and more aware of those little spots, those knots. And it gives you more and more of a chance to really let go and find some softness, some space. Every time when you let go of some tension, it's slightly better. It feels a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more pleasant. At this stage, you're really learning to become comfortable in your own skin. Your mind, your attention will quite naturally be drawn to those points where you're a bit uncomfortable. And as you notice those points, breathe into them, finding a bit of space. As you breathe out, softening, melting, finding a bit of relief. And we're not aiming for massive steps forward into a great deep relaxation, but it's all about those tiny little steps. Just a little bit better. That's the road we follow. Now I'd like you to notice quite simply whether you're breathing in or out. Just knowing this one breath. Breathing in, knowing that you're breathing in. Breathing out, knowing that you're breathing out. Just keeping one breath in mind. You can think of one breath as one session of meditation. If you manage to be fully aware from the beginning of the in-breath to its end, the first moment of your out-breath all the way down to its end, and you've had a good, stable session there. You might end up a bit more distracted again. The mind's drifting, the attention is wandering. Well, that's okay, that's normal, that's to be expected. It's natural. But then again, you will have this moment when you suddenly remember the breath. And you naturally come back. Just feeling as you breathe in. Feeling as you breathe out. Just one breath. Focus on your little successes. On what you're doing good. And on what is pleasant. Perhaps you find a particular way of breathing that feels really nice. And enjoy. Let your mind and your breath gradually come together more and more. As a beginner, you may be distracted for 10 minutes and aware of your breathing for 1 second. So we gradually work on becoming aware of the breathing for 10 minutes and distracted for 1 second. And you can't get there if you're stressing out. You can get there if you enjoy, if you appreciate, if you have a good time with your breath. Knowing when the in-breath begins, how it evolves, how it ends. And the first moment of the out-breath, all the way down to its last moment. And every time when your mind naturally returns to the breath after a moment of distraction, just appreciate that. Notice it. That's nice. Rather than scolding your mind and telling it just how awfully distracted it all the time is and trying to force it to the breath and make a huge drama out of it, simply learn to appreciate those little tiny moments that are good, that are comfortable, that are nice. And they will become more. They will become longer. Because you're feeding them with your attention. once your mind has become a bit more stable, a bit less restless, and we can let go of the object of the breath and simply be with the experience that presents itself to you in this moment. Neither following it nor pushing it away. Just allow it to unfold, to arise, and to pass by itself. Whether that's a thought, an emotion, a sound, a sensation in your body, or a reaction to it, simply let it be. There's nothing to get rid of, nothing to accumulate, nothing to build, nothing to destroy. There's simply the truth of this moment. Like this, we rest in our natural state. As if everything was already perfect. Simply knowing, observing all your experiences. In particular, knowing how they change. How every state lasts for but a few moments and then changes into another state. Without you doing anything to it. Just like your heart, it's beating without you needing to beat it. It beats by itself. This whole idea that there is something wrong with you and you shouldn't experience what you are experiencing, that is an obstacle. It's not correct. Truth is simply like this. There's nothing to add on to it, nothing to take away from it. We simply learn to be at peace with it, existing in harmony with it. Giving up the fight with the way things are. While resting in this open, self-knowing clarity, you can slowly come back and open your eyes, gently stretch a little bit if you like. So, hello everyone. It's good to see all of you. Today I received a question from Simon. And Simon asks, how does one identify and become the best version of themselves? In my mental framework, before becoming the best version of yourself, you need to understand or identify who the best version is, i.e., what if you don't know what the best version of yourself looks like? So that's the first question. Second question is, how does one develop courage to take risks and leave their comfort zone? Okay, so how does one identify and become the best version of themselves? So perhaps this helps. We can divide our motivation into a primary motivation and a secondary motivation. And that primary motivation is a motivation that is very objective, something that we all share. That's what we all have in common. This is what connects us. Isn't anything particular that divides you, that makes you stand out, that makes you more of an individual, more separated from the rest. Thanks. But it's something that brings us more together, that simple understanding. So if I look at John over there, and I contemplate what it is that he is really looking for and what I am really looking for, it's the same thing. Same goes for you. We all want exactly the same thing. Now, what could that be? You see it in our day-to-day endeavors. Whatever we do from moment to moment, whether it's inside of your mind or emotionally or interpersonally, we're seeking to make things better. We have an aversion of fear, of suffering. We do not want to experience hardship, pain, stress, displeasure, disrepute, all kinds of problems. We do not want to experience that. Nobody would lift their hand and say, well, I would love to get severely ill in the next week or so. But I would love to experience tremendous pain and suffering. Nobody gets up in the morning having that kind of wish. Instead, we all wish the opposite. The other side of that, the downside, not the downside, just the other side of the hand, you think, the one side we are looking for the end of suffering and stress. The other side is we're looking for happiness. Whether you're saying I want to be happy or I do not want to suffer, it's essentially the same thing. Happiness arises always in the absence of suffering. To the extent that you do not suffer, to that extent you're happy. Think about it. Think back in your own life. All your experiences, any experience that you've ever had that felt good, it always felt good due to a previous problem being solved, coming to an end. It feels good to eat. Why? Because it solves the problem and the suffering of hunger, or perhaps boredom. Yes? Moving your body, you go down more to the micro level, moving your body every now and then, every couple of seconds. Why do you move it? Because you want to get away from some uncomfortable situation towards a more pleasant situation. So you move your body. And then it's a little bit better for a while, and then it changes again. Then you need to move again. And you move again. So life keeps on going like this. Our posture, our body is a very good way to reflect upon this simple truth. And in your own mind, thinking about so many things. What are you thinking about all day long? I guarantee you it's only and always to do with how can I possibly avoid problems and how can I be more happy. It's just simple as that. This is what unites all of us. This is where we're all the same on that level. I'm not saying we're all the same or that we should all be made equal, because there's beauty in differences. But on some levels, we are all identical. And this is one level that's really relevant. If I'm looking at someone, I simply see somebody that doesn't want to suffer and that seeks happiness. It makes my life much more simple. If I look at myself, I look in those terms too. I'm just running around looking for an end of stress, trying to find relief, trying to find ease, peace, happiness, well-being, joy. That's why I do every single thing. So now that we understand this, we understand our primary goal, our primary motivation. This is what moves us at the core. Now the secondary motivation, in my opinion, should be something that is in service of the first. So what you do in your life, the projects that you start, the communications that you have with others, everything you do from the morning to the evening, is it serving your primary goal? In other words, is it bringing you closer to happiness? Is it bringing you further away from contraction, from stress, from tension, whether it's in the body or the mind or in your emotions? Do you become more open, more relaxed, more accepting of truth, or are you in a head-on collision with it? Are you fighting the way it is, or are you existing in harmony with the way it is? So for most people, we're living out a kind of a conflict with what is true, what is real. For example, a very simple example that we all know from our day-to-day lives. When you suffer and you have an argument with someone and you're super angry at this person, and that person points out your anger, says, "You're so angry. You're so full of hate. You're so angry." What's your first response to it? "No, I'm not." We immediately deny that simple truth that I suffer. So we do have a fundamental problem which doesn't allow us to acknowledge the most important truth about ourselves, where there is suffering. And that suffering begs for you to address it. But if you don't, it'll persist and it come out in many, many forms. And then it'll be shared with others too. So it becomes a much bigger problem than it would have to become. So suffering and stress, that's why the Buddha calls it the first noble truth, is your very first important insight, the understanding, the sensitivity to yourself. Am I contracting or am I releasing? Am I at ease with the way it is, or am I confrontational with the way it is? Am I in denial of what's going on, or am I aware of what's going on? That's a huge difference. That makes a big difference in our lives. If you can take that kind of responsibility for yourself, in my opinion, you are truly becoming mentally, intellectually, and emotionally much more of an adult. Not just only physically. Physically, we're all adults, yes? But, appearances can be deceiving. Maybe we're adults on the outside, but we're teenagers on the inside still. And if you look at your mind, it's pretty much the case for most of us that we're behaving like unruly teenagers, or even like a little kid throwing a temper tantrum when it doesn't get what it wants. And of course, outwardly we can control ourselves a little bit, but inwardly, it's still the same thing going on. There's no growing up process in the mind. And a growing up process arises once you take responsibility for the most important thing within yourself, which is your primary motivation. I do not want to suffer, and I want to be truly happy. If you were to truly address that, then you'd be on the way to becoming the best version of yourself. This whole thing, the best version of ourselves, it's quite complex to answer that, because really, what is yourself? And what is the best version of it? The best. How do you find that out? Like, it's an impossible kind of philosophical question where you can break your head with this. You can't wrap your head around it. Like, first of all, what is the self exactly? And then what would be the best version of it among infinite versions to choose from? Becomes really complicated. You'd have to then find out, well, what is it that I do want to become? Here again, very helpful. What I really seek to become is not a doctor, a lawyer, or a banker, or whatever. What I really seek to become is happy and free from fear, totally at ease. No matter what happens, no matter what life throws at me, I'm okay. I don't need to go through life moved by fear anymore. I'm at ease with truth. Not even death is a scary thing anymore, or illness, or any problem for me, because I'm outside of the experience of suffering. I do not exist anymore conjoined with experiences, but as an observer of them. So I'm free, liberated from all the suffering that I could experience if I wasn't aware. Now, why would that be the best version of yourself? I think the best version of yourself is the version which is serving the world. I'd say that. I'd say that all the best things in life and in human history came from love and compassion, from kindness, from care for one another. Think of an earthquake flattening an entire city. After that earthquake, what do human beings do? They put aside all their bickering about nonsense that the media has taught them to bicker about, and start to connect and to be compassionate and to relate to one another and their pain, because in that situation they can all understand one another. And it is that which leads to the rebuilding of something beautiful, something good. And unfortunately for human beings, it seems to take catastrophes and war and cruelty and so on and so forth to remind us of what we all have in common, which is the fear of suffering and the hope for happiness. And in my opinion, it wouldn't have to require these drastic catastrophes and dramas of human life for us to realize that. If somebody is truly living their best version of themselves, in my opinion, it would have to be a version of themselves which is truly in service of what is good for all. And how can we do that? Well, simple. You take out the troublemaker. You simply remove the one who creates troubles from the picture. What is left is benefit. As soon as you don't suffer anymore, people around you do not have to bear your suffering. You know? It's not about waiting for the world to become this ideal, soft, cushiony place that liberates you from suffering. That's not the job of the world. It's not the job of other people to adhere to your own ideals. You can't make others responsible for your feelings. That's slavery. Like I feel bad because you are the way you are. What kind of statement is that even? Because you say the things you say. No, I feel bad because I am helpless. I don't know how to make myself comfortable. I don't know how to release all that tension and anger and stress and resistance. I don't know what to do with myself. So the easy way, the expedient way, is to just blame others for my own pain. Suffering is not something that happens to you, it's something you do. That's the first important acknowledgement. Suffering is not coming from the outside in. It's coming from the inside in. And then it manifests on the outside. Once you are in conflict with truth, that conflict will show. It will show in your health, it will show in your family, it will show in your activities, in your communities, and so on. It spreads. If there is even one person that's ill, that suffers, they will start to share their suffering with others. That's why this world is such a messy place, because people share suffering with one another. The question is then, what is it that suffers? Not what I call the troublemaker. The only answer that I would have for that is, I am. I suffer. Besides, it seems that every single thought that I ever have and emotion that I ever had revolves around that little I. It's all about me. Have you noticed? Day in, day out. Even when you're thinking of others, it's in relation to you. Even when we say I love you to our loved ones, it's in order to receive the answer. It's perhaps insecurity. Hey honey, I love you. Imagine you didn't get an answer. Your true motivation would be standing revealed. You'd immediately see, oh wow, that's why I was asking. I was asking to cover up insecurity. I don't feel loved, so I just quickly check in with my partner to give me another fix. It's all about the self. All misery throughout human history, all problems in this world, we can blame one thing, and it's egoism. It's selfishness. The attitude that cares more about the self than about others. Imagine we would all reverse that. It instantly becomes clear that things would get much better. Who is it that suffers? I am. Who has a problem with XYZ? I have. So what is that troublemaker? That self, that sense of self, which is in constant conflict with reality, which is always uneasy with the way things are. If that goes away, the troublemaker goes away, then all fear goes away, because what is it that has fear? I have. And the only thing that is left then is connection, because connection arises in the absence of self. Does that make sense? If you have a very strong ego, and your friend has a very strong ego, it's really hard to connect. It's really hard to come together. The stronger the individuality is, the harder the connection becomes. In societies where individuality is very strongly emphasized, people aren't very social. They're social because usually the government forces them to be social, not because they choose to be social. Because it's all about me, my room, my job, my success, my fears and my hopes. That comes first, before everything else. So societies where there is more of a coming together, there is also usually more vulnerability. Poorer societies, more difficulties. People have to work together. They can't afford individuality, my own room, my own things, because things have to be shared. So therefore they're more social. I always find it quite impressive in Thailand how Thai people are able to remember names. Not only names, but how they're able to remember the stories behind those names. You go to the government, you misbehave once. They remember you for the rest of your life, and it just keeps going. It's this guy who misbehaved once. Or you come to the market, you buy something at some stand, you buy it once. Immediately there's a bit of a conversation going back and forth. How long have you been here, etc. And then people remember that. I don't. I've been growing up in Germany, highly individualistic country. Everyone has their own house, their own fence, their own door. People are quite closed up in general. It might also be the climate. And so it's hard to get to know people and to remember their story and to remember their names and all that kind of stuff. I find that to be the case. At least that's just my own personal experience. It may be totally different for you. The less ego one has, the less individuality, the less tension around oneself and my rights and my things, the more at ease we can be with life and with others and so on. And the more at ease you can be, the more connected you can become. One of my teachers said it quite nicely. He said we're all kind of like clay pots that are filled with salt water and swimming on the ocean. Your job is to break so that the salt water within yourself can mingle with the salt water around you. That's what the spiritual paths all over the world, throughout history were originally designed to do, to break our little clay vessel of our ego, of ourselves, so we can unite with something that is by far greater than my little imagination of myself. And that is love, that connection. That is compassion, that connection. And if somebody lives in that spirit, they naturally live, you could say, their highest self. They live free from fear. They have nothing to be afraid of because their clay vessel is already broken. They've already realized themselves to be the ocean. They don't have to fear other waves or other clay pots. They can very intimately connect with everything that is. It's not that they have life, it's that they are life. There's this misconception within ourselves that you can feel that for yourself. It's almost like you feel you have a life. Life is in your possession. It's something you own. Instead of, I am life. Everything that there is an expression of life. It is pure aliveness. Every single atom is pure aliveness within itself. But again, we suffer from misconception. And so the consequences of that are more and more suffering, more and more tension. So that's what I think, this is how we identify and become the best version of ourselves, is to lessen the grip of the self, lessen your egoic and egoistic drives, and open your heart and make goodness your sole intention in whatever you do. May it be for the good of all. That's how you become the best version. Now, how does one develop courage to take risks and leave their comfort zone? The second question, same thing. Same thing. You'd only need courage if your goals are not really aligned with a higher purpose. Then you need to kind of convince yourself to do it. But once you're in touch and you know what your higher purpose is, why you're here, why you're living your life, and what is truly important in the face of death. If this is your last day, what is truly important? Connection, right? Your loved ones. Everyone wants to grab their phone and call their loved ones. And perhaps even death can soften the ego enough that we may become vulnerable so we can connect. We're not projecting strength anymore. We're not having our walls up because death has ripped them down. And it is in those moments, sometimes, where miracles happen. People that have had lifelong drama in their family now can find forgiveness. Their hearts become soft and wide open. And there is nothing to fear in that. If you're standing with love, with compassion, if that is your purpose, what possibly do you need to fear? I don't see anything. Not even death. If I live a life that is filled with that kind of purpose, I have absolutely nothing to worry about. If my purpose is to be here for the service of all, to spread happiness, and to take away suffering from this world, I have nothing to worry about. Because my purpose is clear. I don't need courage. It's natural. Because it isn't about me. Life isn't about me. And perhaps we still need to learn that as a collective. But it isn't about me. It never is. That misconception, if you can get that out of your mind, it'll be for the better. It isn't about you. It's about the absence of suffering. It's about happiness. And that has nothing to do with a self, an ego. Quite the opposite. It's all to do with the lack of it. The more of an ego we have, the more we suffer. One of my teachers actually said, the person with a big sense of self is like a person without a skin moving through a large crowd. Whatever they touch, it hurts. And a person without self, how can you hurt them? What would be there to hurt? It's not even my body. It doesn't belong to me. I don't own it. Life owns it. Nature owns it. Not I. So why would I be upset if something happens to that body? Why could I not just relax? Because nature moves in her ways, and it's okay. Truth is just simply like that. There is old age, illness, death. And it belongs, and it's good. There's no more self that's at war with that. There's peace. If there's peace, there's no fear. There's no need to take courage, to be courageous. You know, everything becomes quite effortless there. So I hope that, it's a big topic, and that's just one perspective on it. But I do hope that this would have been somewhat helpful. Now this time I came to this topic from a very high-level spiritual background. You could also address it just from a worldly perspective. That's possible too, You build up your courage by thinking about the benefits that you get if you're getting there, and thinking about the downfalls of if you do not pursue your goal, and what will happen with you 5 years down the line if you haven't been active and you haven't done anything to pursue your goal and get after your dreams and so on. And that would then build courage, for example, on that level. It's a different level, so maybe we can talk about this some other point. I think for today that is enough.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and had a meaningful time. For more information and upcoming events, head over to our website at phuket-meditation.com. Thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day.